Welcome back to Crypto Shockwave, the channel where we break down the biggest stories in the XRP world and give you the analysis that actually matters for your portfolio. $3 trillion every single year. That is how much money Ripple is already clearing through its new prime brokerage operation, and almost nobody in the mainstream media is talking about it. While XRP price sits at $1.20, Ripple the company has quietly become something that JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs should be very worried about. A full Wall Street institution, built from the ground up, in plain sight. Nobody rings a bell at the bottom, but sometimes the data rings it for you. And today, we are going to show you exactly what that data is saying. Let me give you the second number that changes everything. On May 15th, 2026, Ripple filed 2 new trademarks with the United States Patent and Trademark Office. Prime brokerage, securities lending, and clearing. These are not startup moves. These are Wall Street institution moves. Stop right there, because most people read that headline and moved on. But what those 2 trademark filings actually reveal is a company that has already built the machine and is now filing the legal paperwork to protect it. That is a completely different story. And by the end of this video, you will understand exactly why these Ripple trademarks matter. More than anything else in 2026, even if the price does not show it yet. Let us start with what Ripple Prime actually is. In October 2025, Ripple acquired a company called Hidden Road for $1.25 billion. That is the largest acquisition in crypto history at that point. Hidden Road was immediately rebranded as Ripple Prime. And what does Ripple Prime do? It operates as a global multi-asset prime broker, clearing over $3 trillion every single year. That puts it alongside the biggest clearing operations on Wall Street. Think about that for one moment. A crypto company is now clearing $3 trillion annually. JP Morgan clears roughly $5 trillion. Goldman Sachs clears around $4 trillion. Ripple is already in that conversation, and most XRP holders have no idea. But wait, because the prime broker is only one piece of what Ripple has been quietly building, and this is where most analysts have completely missed the story. Follow the money, not the headlines. And when you follow Ripple's money trail over the past 18 months, you find something extraordinary. In December 2025, the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, also known as the OCC, conditionally approved a national trust bank for Ripple. Then, in April 2026, a final rule cleared Ripple to move toward actually operating that bank. Let that sink in. Ripple is about to become a federally supervised trust bank in the United States of America. What does a trust bank do? It holds and safeguards assets. And in Ripple's case, this trust bank will manage the reserves behind RLUSD, Ripple's dollar stablecoin. This puts Ripple under direct federal banking supervision. That is new ground. No crypto company has ever stood here before. And there is more. Ripple already owns the other pieces of a complete financial institution. Treasury software through G-Treasury, custody through Medico, and now prime brokerage through Ripple Prime. Add the trust bank on top, and you have something that looks less like a crypto startup and more like a full-service financial institution. Smart money buys in the dark while retail sells in headlines. And right now, the smart money is watching Ripple assemble something that has never existed before in the digital asset space. But wait, before you get too excited, let me show you what the skeptics are saying, because they are not entirely wrong. And if you ignore this part, you could make the wrong decision. The bear case is simple. Ripple Prime's revenue tripled in 1 year. $3 trillion cleared annually. OCC Trust Bank approved, 2 new Wall Street trademarks filed, and yet, XRP price fell from above $2 to around $1.20. The company is growing explosively, but the token price is not following. How do you explain that? Here is how you explain it. Ripple's business growth and XRP token price are currently on 2 separate tracks. The company builds infrastructure. The token reflects market sentiment. And right now, market sentiment across all of crypto is bearish. Bitcoin just lost $1.44 billion in weekly outflows. Ethereum just recorded 15 straight days of ETF outflows. In that environment, even the best performing asset struggles. But here's the reframe that most people miss. Every piece of infrastructure Ripple builds creates future demand for XRP. The trust bank manages RLUSD reserves. RLUSD runs on the XRP ledger. Ripple Prime clears transactions. Many of those transactions use XRP as bridge currency. The more Ripple builds, the more pathways exist for XRP to flow through. Gradual, then sudden. That is how institutional adoption works. You do not see it building. Then one day, it is everywhere. Now let us talk about what these two trademark filings actually mean for the future. Prime brokerage covers three specific services. Number 1, securities lending. Number 2, clearing. Number 3, margin financing. These are the exact services that institutional investors need before they can take large positions in any asset, including XRP. Think about it this way. Before a hedge fund can take $1 billion position in XRP, it needs a prime broker to facilitate that trade. Before an asset manager can lend XRP for yield, it needs a securities lending desk. Ripple is building exactly those services for exactly that institutional audience right now. And here is the number that ties everything together. XRP ETFs in the United States currently hold 775 million XRP. That is 1.26% of all XRP in circulation. That number grew by 1.9% in Q1 of 2026. While Bitcoin ETFs lost 1.44 billion in 1 week, XRP ETFs kept pulling in fresh capital. $20 million in the most recent week alone. Morgan Stanley just disclosed XRP ETF exposure in its latest filing. That is 3 major Wall Street institutions now publicly holding XRP products. Goldman Sachs at 153 million, Morgan Stanley now added, and BlackRock sitting at the center of the ETF market. The train does not wait, and right now, the institutional train for XRP is already moving. Most retail investors are still standing on the platform. There is one more thing most people are completely overlooking. Ripple's chief legal officer, Stuart Alderoty, recently said something very important. He called Ripple a full-service crypto infrastructure provider for businesses. Not a payments app, not a speculative token. A full-service infrastructure provider. That is a completely different company than most retail investors think they own a piece of. And what about RLUSD? Ripple's stablecoin is now live in Turkey, targeting a market with nearly $200 billion in annual crypto volume. It is already live in Asia through SBI VC Trade in Japan. It is expanding across the Middle East. RLUSD is the fuel that runs through Ripple's entire financial machine. And every expansion of RLUSD is another reason for XRP ledger transactions to increase. Capital rotates from one opportunity to another. Right now, capital is leaving Bitcoin. It is leaving Ethereum. And a portion of that capital is landing in XRP ETFs. $20 million last week alone, while everything else was bleeding. That is not an accident. That is rotation. Price is what you pay. Value is what you get. And right now, the value being built inside Ripple's ecosystem is moving faster than the price reflects. History tells us that gap does not stay open forever. So what are the 3 signals you need to watch right now? Signal 1. Watch for the OCC Trust Bank to receive final operating approval. When that happens, RLUSD gets federal backing, and institutional confidence in Ripple's entire ecosystem jumps immediately. Signal 2. Watch for Ripple Prime to announce its first major institutional client publicly. One name from the Fortune 500 using Ripple Prime for clearing, and the narrative changes overnight. Signal 3. Watch the Clarity Act timeline. Senate floor vote expected before July 4th. If it passes, institutions can legally allocate capital to XRP without regulatory risk. That is the single biggest unlock remaining. Either the institutions building with Ripple know something retail does not, or $3 trillion a year in clearing is the biggest coincidence in financial history. You decide. If you are not subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button right now. Turn on notifications, because the next video we are dropping could be the most important one you ever watch. Stay wise, stay positioned. I will see you in the next one.